What's going on, everybody? Jay Howe here, and in this video I'm going to go over one of the current top monk builds that a lot of people are using for the Diablo 3 patch 2.2.0. There's been a lot of changes to a lot of the gear, including the Raiment set, which is going to have you using dashing strike and moving all about. I'm going to cover the skills you're going to need, some alternative options you can go with, then I'll cover the gear that's necessary to make all that work. I'll also cover the Paragon points at the end and have you guys dashing around like crazy. For the skills, Fist of Thunder with Wind Blast, Dashing Strike with Blinding Speed, Breath of Heaven with Infused with Light, Inner Sanctuary with Forbidden Palace, Epiphany with Insight, Mantra of Salvation with Agility, and for your passives, Harmony, Near-Death Experience, Beacon of Etar, and Sixth Sense. Now, Fist of Thunder with Wind Blast I chose. This is especially if you're planning on climbing the leaderboards or whether you just like a little bit more survivability. Every third hit freezes enemies for 2 seconds. That's really good because that's going to keep them from hitting you. Obviously, if they're frozen, they can't do anything. The other thing it'll play with is some of the gear that I'm going to show you here in just a second as well, such as the Ancient Parthan Defenders, and that'll help mitigate some damage as well. If you're looking to just go sheer DPS, you can easily go with Quickening. This increases Spirit generated to 20, which means it'll allow you to do more dashing strikes and be able to get moving around quite a bit. For your main attack, Dashing Strike with Blinding Speed. This one is great here. Gain 40% increased chance to dodge for 4 seconds after using Strike. That's going to give you a chance to avoid a lot of damage while simultaneously doing a lot of damage because of the Raiment set, which I'll go over here in a second. So that's a really nice skill to use, and that's one you're going to be your main attack. And that's going to be a cold skill, and that's important when you're gearing as well. Breath of Heaven infused with Light. This is important because you gain 14 additional spirit from spirit generating attacks for 5 seconds after using Breath of Heaven. You're going to be attacking a lot with your primary skill while trying to mix in Dashing Strike whenever it's conceivable. This allows you to be able to get spirit back to allow you to Dashing Strike more and more and more. So keep that in mind. That's where the spirit is necessary to be able to do max damage. Inner Sanctuary with Forbidden Palace. Enemies inside Inner Sanctuary take 30% increased damage and have their movement speed reduced by 80%. That's good because you're going to be amplifying a lot of damage there with Inner Sanctuary and being able to come out. You're going to be in a group area, especially if you're in greater rifts. That's going to be very important because you'll be fighting in consolidated areas. So this build can be a little bit squishy, but it's also going to be necessary to be able to do damage. Sometimes it's better off killing things as opposed to sitting there and trying to mitigate more damage. To help mitigate damage, you have the Epiphany rune. This is going to be great to use, especially when you're in there fighting elites. This also increases the spirit regeneration from Epiphany to 45, and this is another one. So you're getting more spirit back between your Epiphany skill and your Breath of Heaven, so you can go and Dashing Strike more and more and more. You can start to see the synergy come together here, but this is also going to help mitigate damage, which is extremely important. Mantra of Salvation with Agility. You're going to see passively, you and your allies within 60 yards gain 20% increased resist to all and 35% increased dodge chance. Both of those are extremely important to survivability. If you were to pop this, you're going to get the extra additional 20% increase to all resistances for 3 seconds. Use that if you need to. For your passives, Harmony, 40% of your single elemental resistances instead increases your resistances to all elements. So that's good to take all the different elements from your gear that has resistances to be able to increase your defense there as well. That's pretty important for this one, especially when you're in there fighting. Near-Death Experience. This is one that's basically a second life. And now if you don't want to run with this, especially if you're running T6 and you feel okay with everything, you can run another direction with, say, Seize the Initiative, especially if you're Dashing Strike. You're going to be going dashing all over the place. So this is pretty much going to be dealing damage to enemies above 75% life, increases your attack speed. So if you're going and dashing, you're just going to go and increase your attack speed. It's going to make for a little bit quicker experience. Beacon of Etar, reduce all cooldowns by 20%. That is extremely important for your Breath of Heaven, Inner Sanctuary, and Epiphany skills. Keep that in mind. Sixth Sense is another damage mitigating one. Reduce all non-physical damage taken by 25%. That's important. Again, you can change this out if you wanted to, especially if you're going somewhere else. You can even go with Momentum if you're using Dashing Strike and T6 as well, to be able to go and move about as much as possible. That's just going to increase your damage every time you move 25 yards. And if stuff is dying fast, that 25 yards is going to be covered at least every 6 seconds. So that's one way to go. For your gear, this is making use of the new Raiment set changes, Raiment of 1,000 Storms. Now this set's been around, and it's actually just been revamped. So if you kept this stored away somewhere, then you're going to be very well off, else you're going to have to farm this all over again. Your 2-piece bonus, your spirit generators have 25% increased attack speed and 300% increased damage. That's great because the Fist of Thunder you're going to be using all the time. Your 4-piece bonus, Dashing Strength, spends 75 spirit but refunds a charge when it does. No longer do you have to worry about running out of charges, you just have to worry about running out of spirit, which again, that comes hand in hand with your primary skill, Breath of Heaven, Epiphany, and everything else that we have going. Your 6-piece bonus, your spirit generators increase the weapon damage of Dashing Strike to 12,500% for 6 seconds. This is the main reason you're going to be using your spirit generators all the time. This is a huge damage increase. Once you get this going and you pop a couple of shots there, and then you go ahead and Dashing Strike, that's a huge damage increase. I mean, that is a huge damage increase. Now couple that with the Focus and Restraint rings, which were also redone. When you hit with a resource-generated attacker primary skill, deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds, and when you hit with a resource-spending attack, deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. That's multiplicative, and that's going to be quite a bit of damage that you're going to be doing. So that's a really nice thing to keep in mind there. You're not going to be running a Unity. That's why I said you're going to need a little bit more toughness in other areas. And this is one way to be able to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead, put myself out there, and do more damage. It's a little bit more dangerous for higher greater rifts, but it's a lot more rewarding. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to use both skills, and it's all going to have great synergy. As you can see, everything's playing well together. The other item you'll need is a Flying Dragon. This is nice. So if you had a Flying Dragon before for the old build, then you're going to just go ahead, pull that thing out, and come right back at it. Chance to double your attack speed when attacking. If you can double your attack speed while you're using Fist of Thunder, you're going to get Spirit back very, very quickly, which means more Dashing Strike. So that's important while you're doing that, so keep that in mind. Your raiment pieces, just for review, are your boots, pants, gloves, shoulders, helmet, and chest. All of those are necessary. Now, if you are running high greater rifts and you want to be able to get as high as you can, you are probably going to have to substitute out some of these dexterity gems for some all resistance gems. Survivability is at a premium for this build, so if you need to put it in there, it is extremely important to keep that in mind if you find yourself dying too much, to probably swap those out for diamonds. You do not want to go for life, you want to go for damage mitigation. Now, for a belt, again, if you're not playing for high stakes, you can run with something like a Witching Hour to do plenty of damage. Or if you plan on trying to mitigate more damage and go higher, a String of Ears is good only because, well, not only, but mostly because of the secondary stat there, because it always runs with the melee damage reduction, and it's very important to keep in mind there when you're running that. Like I said earlier, the Ancient Parthan Defenders are really good to run with. Each stunned enemies within 25 yards reduces your damage taken by 9%. When you freeze, that does count, so you can get the bonus benefit of that as well to help mitigate even more damage. Now, for your amulet, if you have an amulet that has an elemental skill damage, such as cold damage in this case, if you can get crit hit damage, crit hit chance, cold skill damage socket, that's great. If not, crit hit damage, crit hit chance socket, and then dexterity is the next best way to go. I don't have one with cold skill damage, so I'm going with this one here because it rolled well. I just kept this from my Sun Wukong set, and I'm good to go. For your helmet, having a diamond in there as well for the cooldown reduction is very important, again for your Epiphany and many other skills that you're going to be using, so keep that in mind. For your legendary gems, the Esoteric Alteration is now here from Season 2, so you can use that to help mitigate non-physical damage. Bane of the Trapped is good because you're going to have an aura around you that's going to be a crowd controlling effect, so you're going to have that in place to be able to do extra damage. And then a Bane of the Powerful is nice to use as well. If you have a nice Taeguk, you can run that as well. I think mine is somewhere else. And we have one there, but you can run a Taeguk here as well to get the extra cooldown reduction, plus the increased attack speed, that's probably going to be your better choice as opposed to Bane of the Powerful. Go ahead and put the Taeguk in there. You get the increased attack speed plus the cooldown reduction. Not a bad way to go. Now, if you are playing Season 3, there are a pair of new Season 3 only bracers that help your spirit generators. You can wear those above the Ancient Parthan Defenders, and you're probably going to be much better off. So keep that in mind if you are using this build for Season 3. For your Paragon's points, max your movement speed in conjunction with your gear, and then the rest into dexterity. Offense. Cooldown reduction is very important. Keep that in mind that if you're not alive, you're not doing damage. So being able to mitigate as much damage as possible all the time is very important. Crit hit damage, crit hit chance, and then an increased attack speed after that. For your defense, resist all, armor, life, and then life regen. Utility, resource cost reduction, area damage, and life on hit are all very important. Life on hit if you find yourself needing a little bit more help there, but resource cost reduction is huge to be able to get more dashing strikes out there. Again, keep in mind your Raiment set 12,500% damage is pretty important, so you might want to keep that in mind. That's the gear, that's the skills, and that's everything you need to know. I would run this in some T6 content, but you're pretty much just going to one-shot everything, and you're not going to be able to make use out of most of your skills, like Inner Sanctuary. Inner Sanctuary is really good when you're running Greater Rifts. Like I said, you're going to be in the area for at least a couple seconds, and that's good to have that there to be able to do a lot of damage and really quickly to a lot of things that are going on there. So keep that in mind, and it also protects you as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on with all of the synergy here. As you can see, as we went through the skills and we went through the gear, you can probably see how it's all playing together. So hopefully this has helped you. If you guys do like the build, if you like the video, if you like what you're seeing, and you want to hit that like button below, that is greatly appreciated. If you're looking for more Diablo 3 content and other class builds, be sure and subscribe for more content there and more future content as well. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.